Hey everybody, Adam with the BMW Repair Guide. Today we have a 2018 X2 in our back shop, and a question that we receive quite a bit from X2 owners is whether they can change out their own battery. The X2 for some reason has a penchant for burning up batteries very quickly, and so we're getting comments from owners wondering if they can do it themselves instead of going down to the dealership and paying a fortune to have it done. The answer is yes, absolutely. It's very simple to do. The battery on the X2 is located underneath the hood. We're going to show you step-by-step instructions on how to remove it and install a new one from your local auto parts store. But before we get started, there are 3 things that you must have before you get started with replacing the battery on your X2. Very important. First, you're going to need your phone. So you can, or a camera, but best a phone, so you can take a photo of the existing battery to make sure that you match it as closely as possible. The second thing is a tape measure, so you can measure the length of the battery that's currently in the car to make sure that you get that as close as possible as well. You want to make sure that it mounts correctly inside underneath the hood. And lastly, you're going to need a diagnostic scanner, or you're going to need to have access to a diagnostic scanner to what is called register the new battery. The battery on the X2 has an intelligent battery sensor on it, when you install a new battery, in a nutshell, you have to let the car know that you've installed a new one. If not, you're not going to get the longevity out of the battery. It's going to, in some cases, confuse the vehicle, and you'll have abstract lights start to pop on and off, and just all kinds of weirdness. So you really need to register the new battery when you install it. Once again, if you look at our description below this video, you'll see links to buy one. Always great to have if you're a home mechanic type guy or gal and you do your own repairs. It's great to have a diagnostic scanner laying around the garage. You plug it into your X2. If you ever have a light on the dashboard, it'll tell you exactly what's wrong. If you don't want to invest in a diagnostic scanner, we suggest going by your local repair shop. Even some of the parts stores like Advanced and AutoZone are carrying scanners that have the capability to register the battery in your BMW, and of course most of them will do it for free. So your choice on how you want to proceed with that. So once again, let's get started on installing a new battery in this X2. So the battery on the X2 is located underneath the hood, underneath this panel right here. And the first thing we want to do before running to your local auto parts store and buying a new battery is to get the exact specifications off the existing one, and to also get the exact measurement, what size it is as well. So that way when you go to your local auto parts store, you get the right amperage and you get the right size, so it will slide right in here beautifully and will operate correctly. So first thing we want to do is we want to pop this cover off. And this plastic cover is what protects the positive battery terminal on the battery. And as you can see, the battery is located right down inside this compartment. Now we don't want to go any further with this yet, because like I said, we want to get the specs and we want to get the size, and then we can go down to the local auto parts store and get a replacement. What you want to do is take your phone and slide it in and take a photo of the specifications that are written on top of the battery. They'll give you the amperage and all that good stuff, which you can take with you just to make sure you're getting the right one when you go to your auto parts store. The next thing you want to do is take a tape measure and actually measure the width of the battery, and be sure not to touch any terminals with this when you're doing it, but measure the width of the battery. Ours is around 12 inches. And this makes sure that you'll get the right size, because these batteries can come in different sizes. You want to make sure that it matches the battery tray so you get a perfect fit when you replace it. So to get the battery out, we're going to need to remove this back piece of trim. So you'll just use a simple trim removal tool like this to remove 2 plastic rivets, one here and one on the other side. I would also go ahead and remove this gasket, sealing gasket, and put that out of the way as well. And then we'll use a trim removal tool to go ahead and remove the plastic rivet. You just pop right out like this. We'll move to the other side and remove this one. Very simple. And the tray pops right out like that. Now you can see we have full access to the battery. Okay, after you remove the back trim piece, you're going to need a 16mm socket to remove this bolt so we can swing this strut brace out of the work area. If you don't swing it out of the work area, you're not going to be able to get the battery out of the compartment. And there you can see we have enough room now to get the battery out. Next, we're going to use a 10mm socket to remove the terminals off the battery. Now, we're going to start with the positive terminal. Remember, this has an intelligent battery sensor on it. This thing is very sensitive. Be very careful when you disconnect this terminal. Do not let it flop around, hit something, and get damaged, or you're going to have to buy a new intelligent battery sensor, and they are not cheap. Also, have a rag ready. When you remove these terminals, wrap them in rags. You do not want to short. A short circuit can blow out control modules and cause a really big issue. So if you follow the rules, it's very simple. Just be prepared before you start pulling everything apart. So removing the positive terminal is a little bit more challenging. First of all, you're going to want to use a 13mm socket to remove these peripheral wires. And the reason why is you're going to have to remove them or you won't be able to get the cable off the connector. So you're going to have to give yourself a little bit of play. And in order to do that, you're going to have to, like I say, remove a couple of these cables. So it's very simple to do. Like I said, just use a 13mm socket. Now the positive battery cable on the X2 is very difficult to get to with a socket. We just use a 10mm open end wrench, which is perfectly acceptable, to go ahead and loosen the nut. We already loosened it, but you would just, now that you've cleared out everything, you can go ahead and get in there with a 10mm open end or box end and loosen the nut, and then you can easily now remove the cable from the battery. Now that we have the battery cables disconnected from the top of the battery, there's one last step that needs to be taken, and that's to loosen this plastic shroud. Unfortunately, this plastic shroud has to be loosened and pulled back because the clamp that secures the battery to the body of the car is actually on the front of the battery in the X2. And the only way to access it is to loosen up this plastic shroud, move it back, and then we can get in there with a socket wrench and extension. So you're going to want to use a 13mm socket to remove the mounting bolts for the shroud. There's one right here by the strut tower. And be careful removing them so you don't drop them down inside the engine. Then there's another mounting bolt down here. You'll want to use an extension to get it. Now, a neat little trick that we use is to add a little blue tape on the end of your socket. And this way, the bolt will stick to the end of it and not get lost. As you can see, the bolt comes right out and doesn't get lost inside the engine. And I would also use the blue tape when reinstalling, so you don't lose the bolt. Now, with the shroud loose, you're going to have to remove these two 10mm nuts on this strut brace, so you can get the shroud out from the engine compartment. So, very simple. Just remove these two nuts. Excuse me, bolts. Now you can see, you can pull the brace back far enough so you can get the shroud out. Now with the plastic shroud out of the way, we can go ahead and remove the bolt securing the front of the battery to the body of the car. It's actually a small little bracket. So we'll remove that bolt and the bracket, and then we'll be able to grasp the battery and pull it out of there. Once again, I use a piece of blue tape on the end so we don't lose the bolt. Just go down in there, remove the bolt and the bracket. And as you can see, the bracket comes right out.